This is a 64-year-old professor of history who fancied himself Napoleon and staged historical reconstructions. And this is his 24-year-old student lover. They wanted to get married, but this love story ended tragically. The professor killed the girl, dismembered her body, and threw it into the river. How could this happen? This story took place in my hometown of St. Petersburg, considered the cultural capital of Russia, as there are many museums and attractions. However, this city is also famous for a large number of the most violent crimes, probably due to its depressive atmosphere and rainy climate. One day in November 2019, a taxi driver called the rescue services of St. Petersburg. He reported that an unknown person was drowning in the Moika River and could not get to shore. Rescuers arrived on the scene to find a 63-year-old man who had fallen from an embankment. They helped him get out, but found a suspicious backpack on him. When they checked the bag, they found something very shocking in it. Inside the backpack was human flesh, 2 severed female hands. Rescuers immediately contacted the police, and the man was detained. It turned out that this man is a famous and respected professor of history at St. Petersburg State University, 63-year-old Oleg Sokolov. Rescuers searched the river and found other body parts, the severed legs and torso of a young woman. On the same day, the police searched his apartment on the Moika embankment and found there the severed head of his mistress, 24-year-old graduate student Anastasia Yashchenko. No one had any doubt that the professor killed his beloved, dismembered her body, and tried to get rid of it by throwing it into the river. CCTV footage shows him throwing black bags from the embankment. However, he was so drunk that he accidentally fell into the river himself while disposing of the body. He could not drown because it was shallow there, but he got cooled. In November, it is usually freezing in St. Petersburg. All, Professor Sokolov, who was respected, received an award from the President of France himself and was friends with many high-ranking officials in Russia. In just a week, he was going to get married to Anastasia. How did it happen? And how did the love affair of these people with such a significant age difference develop? They met 5 years before this tragic incident. At that time, Anastasia was 19 and Professor Sokolov was 59. She was a student at the Faculty of History at St. Petersburg State University, and he was her teacher. The young girl listened to his lectures with bated breath and immediately fell in love. The professor was 40 years older, and at the same time he was charming and charismatic. He is a specialist in European military history and the author of hundreds of scientific works. Sokolov lectured at Sorbonne University. In 2003, the President of France awarded him for his outstanding contribution to developing research in French history. His favorite period in history is France. During the time of Napoleon, the professor was simply a crazy fan for this historical figure. At some point, he began to associate himself with Napoleon. This is confirmed by the fact that Sokolov dressed in Napoleon's costume when he participated in historical reconstructions. He made his suits abroad for a lot of money and was very proud. Friends and colleagues called him Sir, which is strange and unusual for Russia. He may not have been a brilliant scientist, but he was undoubtedly a charming actor and spoke about Napoleonic France with extraordinary enthusiasm. By the way, I also graduated from this university, where Professor Sokolov taught, but I never attended his lectures because I studied at a different faculty. However, I heard the students who attended his lectures say he was possessed and could yell and behave like crazy. Everyone thought he was just obsessed with history. And all geniuses, as you know, are a little different from others. The fact that he imagined himself to be Napoleon should have already alerted the people around him. But the young student Anastasia was so naive that she saw no strangeness in this man. At 19 years old, the girl was still just like a child. She had never had relationships with other men before and devoted her entire life to studying. Anastasia Ishchenko was born in a small provincial town in the Krasnodar region of Russia. Her father was a physical education teacher and her mother served in the police. Anastasia also had a younger brother. These are ordinary people, not rich, without unique connections. How such an amazing, intelligent girl could grow up in this simple family is incredible. Anastasia was an excellent student, and after school she went to St. Petersburg and entered the most prestigious university in the city. She did not like parties, but spent all her time in libraries, studying history. People who knew her said she reminded them of a noble girl of the 19th century. Just look how similar she was to Josephine, the leading woman in Napoleon's life. Professor Sokolov was immediately fascinated when he saw her among his students. And when they began communicating, he was amazed by her spiritual purity. At the same time, Anastasia most likely had low self-esteem. She wrote in one of her diaries that she considered herself not beautiful. It's strange because I think she was lovely. Perhaps because of her low self-esteem, she connected her life with an actual abuser who subsequently took her life. They started dating and did not even hide their relationship from anyone. I think that in some Western universities such relationships are probably suppressed. It is not normal for a teacher to sleep with his students. However, St. Petersburg State University does not care about this. I knew of one case in my faculty where I studied when a 70-year-old teacher was dating a 17-year-old student. This teacher was fired only after the girl's high-ranking relatives intervened in this love affair. This case became so high-profile also because the girl was underage. And what's strange is that she sincerely confessed her love for her 70-year-old teacher. Everything was by mutual consent. But in other cases, when students are already adults, Russian universities usually don't care who they date. But relationships with such a significant age difference rarely have a happy ending. It is not surprising that the story of Professor Sokolov and his lover also had a tragic outcome. The teacher had previously been married several times and often had relationships with his students. The girls said he constantly flirted with them, therefore many feared being alone with him, and some even missed his classes. Sokolov had 2 children from his previous wife. However, this fact did not bother Anastasia. She stated that she would accept his children into the family as her own, if necessary. But did she know that Sokolov was involved in several scandals? Once, during one of the historical reconstructions, he killed a horse. Another time he had a row with his ex-girlfriend, Catherine, who was also a student. When the girl decided to break off the relationship with him, he tied her to a chair and heated an iron, and then he brought the iron to her face and threatened to disfigure her. The girl remained alive and well, but received several injuries. She contacted the police, but the case was closed. Since Sokolov was an authoritative and respected person, he was a member of the Scientific Council of the Russian Military Historical Society, created by the country's president. So Sokolov knew very high-ranking people from elite circles. That's why this scandal was eventually hushed up. In addition, in Russia, the police don't like to investigate such matters, as they consider domestic violence to be a minor crime. There is no law on domestic violence in Russia, as it is believed that the police should not interfere in people's family affairs. The police usually say, "Call us when someone dies," but for now, it's none of our business. That is why Professor Sokolov did not suffer any punishment for that incident. Even if Anastasia knew about all the scandals involving him, she probably did not realize how dangerous this man could be. She was in love and enchanted. He was an experienced and respected man. He was very smart and cunning. It is elementary for such men to charm a young, naive girl. Sokolov was not rich, but he had a large 3-bedroom apartment on the Moika embankment, a place considered very prestigious in St. Petersburg. He also introduced her to an elite circle and showed her a life she did not know existed. Together they traveled to Europe and attended conferences, where the professor gave a presentation and Anastasia was his assistant. They became not only lovers but also work partners. Together, they wrote several scientific papers and spoke at conferences. The girl moved from the student's dormitory to his large apartment. Their relationship lasted 5 years, and they planned to get married. However, the wedding was postponed due to the financial problems. Another reason why they delayed the marriage was that, over time, their relationship became strained. A young, beautiful girl grew cold towards an aging man. It is no secret that Professor Sokolov loved to drink. Quite often he was seen drunk, and he increasingly misbehaved. Over the years, this problem has become worse. I think his relationship with Anastasia was doomed. Just imagine, when she turned 30, he would already be 70, and by then he would already be a pensioner. What could they have in common at that time? So their separation was only a matter of time. He probably understood this and maybe even envied Anastasia and her youth. He became increasingly jealous of her and forbade her to meet with friends. Everyone knew that he was a powerful and dominant man. He demanded complete submission and was also quick-tempered. His character significantly deteriorated in those moments when he was drunk. So the couple had scandals more and more often. One of the last videos found on Sokolov's phone shows that he drove the girl into hysterics. She cries and tells him, "I hate you, I don't love you anymore." This video was taken just a few hours before her death. That day, the scandal was so intense that Anastasia had to escape from his apartment into the cold without outer clothing. Let me remind you that in November it is freezing in St. Petersburg, and without outer clothing you can get very sick and even die from overcooling. We can assume that the professor brought his woman to this state. This is what a typical relationship between an abuser and his victim looks like. She wanted to leave, but he did not let her go. She could have a great future ahead of her, career, family, and children. He was a 63-year-old man whose brightest moments were behind him. He probably understood that his youth was gone, and he would no longer be able to find the same young, beautiful girl as Anastasia. However, due to his bad character, he could not build a happy relationship, as he always tried to dominate and brought his woman to tears. Anastasia did not like that he spent much time with his children from his previous marriage. The girl was also jealous of his last wife, which also often caused conflicts. One day, during another quarrel, the worst thing happened. The professor could not control himself, which led to murder. It is unlikely that we will ever know precisely how this happened. According to Sokolov, the nice girl Anastasia eventually turned into a real witch. She allegedly swore, insulted him, wished his children dead, and even tried to attack him with a knife. Sokolov also stated that the girl reportedly cheated on him and continued their relationship with him only to get married and take over his apartment. However, this is very difficult to believe, and even if she cheated on him, this is not an excuse why Sokolov did this to her. As the examination found on November 8, 2019, he tried to strangle her and then shot her 4 times in the head. Then he hid the body in one of the rooms. The incredible thing is that the next day, while the girl's body was hidden under the bed, Sokolov arranged a meeting with friends at his home. The event was already planned and he decided not to cancel it. The friends drank as if nothing had happened, ate delicious food, and conversed pleasantly. The next day, Sokolov went to the store where he bought an ordinary saw with a wooden handle, black bags, and a new mattress, since the old one was stained with blood. He decided to dismember the body to throw it piece by piece into the river, but he was so careless that he went to dump the body in the place where the CCTV cameras were installed. Therefore, this crime was quickly discovered. As he admitted having gotten rid of the body, he then wanted to end his life too, but did not have time as the police caught him. In court, Sokolov said that he did not understand how this happened. According to him, he defended himself from an attack by his girlfriend and did not remember anything after the shot. During the trial, the professor was ordered to undergo a psychiatric examination. However, the test showed that he was sane and understood what he was doing. The lawyers based their defense on the fact that he committed his crime under solid influence. The court had to take into account the fact that Sokolov confessed and repented on his crime. The judge also considered that Sokolov was the only son of his parents and had made a significant contribution to science. It was proven that he did not plan this murder but committed it under emotional solid disturbance. Sokolov cried in court, but it is unlikely that he sincerely repented. After all, he insisted everyone around him was to blame except him. It is doubtful that he mourned the poor young girl. He cried because he regretted that he would spend many years in prison. In the end, he was sentenced to 12 years and 6 months. Is this a lot or a little for murder and dismemberment? What do you think? When he is released, he will be 76 years old. He is currently in prison, but he is not wasting any time. The former professor is writing a book, Confession of Life, Love, Betrayal, and Death. The author promises to tell in this work how it happened that he dealt with the woman he loved so much. On the cover of his book, Sokolov is shown riding a horse dressed as Napoleon. In the book, he talks about his fatal love, which led to a great tragedy. By the way, Professor Sokolov is having a great time in prison. He runs a library and leads a history club. He also goes to the gym and lives like in a sanatorium, which is very unusual for Russia, where a prison is usually terrifying. His high-ranking friends tried to ensure that the historian was given good living conditions. Professor Sokolov also found a new lover and will even get married in prison. His new bride is also a historian. She sends him books and other things to prison. Let's hope she will not suffer the same fate as his previous bride. As you can see, sometimes the closest and most beloved person can be real evil. Don't forget this. Thank you and goodbye.